G'day, I'm Dave Cummins from Future Property Group, and welcome to the Future of Sustainable Development, the podcast where we explore the ideas shaping tomorrow's built environment. Today, we're exploring the importance of architects in sustainable design. Who are they? Why are they important? And how do we embrace them? When people hear the word architecture, they often think about how a building looks, the facade, the shape, the statement it makes. Architecture is not decoration. Architecture is decision-making. It is the moment where values, science, and long-term impact are often locked in place before anyone else even joins the project. And that is why architects are so critical for sustainable development. Sustainable development is about designing buildings and communities that actively reduce harm and ideally create benefit. It's about understanding climate, ecology, materials, energy, water, and human behaviour, then weaving all of that into spaces that perform well over decades, not just a handover. Architects sit at the earliest point of influence, where a single decision can reduce emissions, improve health, and lower costs all at once. The built environment contributes close to nearly 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But what is often overlooked is how much of this impact is determined before construction begins. Research published in the journal Energy Policy shows that early design decisions influence between 70 to 90% of a building's life cycle environmental impact. That means by the time the builder arrives on site, most of the carbon story is already written. That is why the roles of architects matter so deeply. William McDougall and Michael Bernhardt, through their cradle-to-cradle framework, demonstrated that design is not about being less bad, it is about being fundamentally good. They showed that materials can be designed as material banks, energy producers, and contributors to human and ecological health. That philosophy begins with architects asking different questions. Not how do we minimize damage, but how do we create positive impact and change? Why does this matter right now? Because the scale of construction over the next few decades is unprecedented. According to research published in Nature Sustainability, the global building stock is expected to double by 2060. That is the equivalent of adding a city the size of New York every month for 40 years. If we continue to design those buildings the way we always have, the climate consequences will be irreversible. Ian Mahag, one of the pioneers of ecological planning, argued that design should follow life. His work demonstrated that ignoring landscape and ecology leads to higher costs, environmental degradation, and social failure. Modern research backs this up. A study in landscape and urban planning showed that developments aligned with natural systems reduce flood risk, urban heat, and infrastructure costs while increasing long-term resilience. Architects are trained to integrate these systems. They are the translators between land and buildings. When they are empowered to work with site conditions rather than against them, sustainability stops being an add-on and to become the foundation. There is also a powerful human dimension. Edward O. Wilson's work on biophilia revealed that humans have an innate need to connect with nature. This is not psychology, it is biology. Research published in Frontiers in Psychology show that access to natural light, ventilation, and views of nature can reduce stress hormones by up to 15% and improve cognitive performance. Architects who design with biophilic principles are not just creating greener buildings, they are improving mental health outcomes at scale. David Berkham's work on sustainable materials highlighted another critical role architects play. Material choice is one of the largest drivers of embodied carbon. Research published in Environmental Research Letters showed that embodied emissions from construction materials could account for nearly half of total building emissions by 2050 if operational energy continues to improve. Architects who prioritise low carbon materials, reuse and design for disassembly directly address to this growing challenge. So how do we embrace the importance of architecture in sustainable developments in a practical way? The first step is to bring architects in at the very beginning, not after feasibility, not once budgets are locked, from day one. Evidence from the journals of sustainable cities and society show that integrated early design teams achieve lower emissions and lower total project costs compared to traditional linear processes. The second step is to give architects permission to design for performance. Let an architect design for a greater building. That means clean, sustainable targets, not vague aspirations. Whether it is the energy use intensity, embodied carbon limits, or water autonomy. Architects need measurable goals. Research in building research and information show that projects with quantified environmental targets consistently outperform code-compliance buildings. The third step is to prioritise passive design before technology. Orientation, shading, insulation, thermal mass, and natural ventilation can reduce operational energy demands dramatically. A study in applied energy found that well-executed passive strategies can reduce cooling loads by more than 40% in warm climates. This is architecture reducing carbon before a single system is switched on. The fourth step is to design with nature rather than over it. Protecting existing vegetation, restoring soil, and working with water flows improves environmental outcomes and reduces long-term risk. Research published in Ecological Engineering shows that nature-based design solutions can outperform conventional infrastructure while costing less over the life of a project. The fifth is to think about the building. Architects influence density, walkability, and community connection. Urban design research published in Transport Reviews showed that compact, well-designed neighbourhoods can reduce transport emissions by up to 30% to car dependence for all. This is architecture shaping behaviour, not just buildings. The sixth step is design for longevity. Buildings that adapt over time avoid demolition and rebuild. A study in the Journal of Cleaner Production found that extending building life through flexible design significantly reduces life cycle carbon even when initial construction emissions are high. What often holds us back is not knowledge, it is mindset. Too many projects still treat architects as stylists rather than system thinkers. Yet the evidence is clear. When architects are positioned as sustainability leaders, outcomes improve access, environment, social and economic metrics. The construction sector invests less than 0.1% to revenue into research and development, according to analysts published in Construction Management and Economics. Architecture is one of the few places where deep innovation can occur without massive capital investment, simply by making better decisions earlier. Sustainable development is not about sacrifice, it is about intelligence. It is about recognizing the most powerful carbon reductions often come from design, not technology, from orientation, not offsets, and from materials, not marketing. The importance of architecture in sustainable development is ultimately about responsibility. Architects hold the pen at the moment where the future is drawn. With that comes an obligation to think long-term, to think systematically, and to think beyond minimum compliance. If we want to generally reduce the carbon footprint of the property sector, we must elevate architecture to a service of leadership role. We must ask architects to help us design places that restore ecosystems, support health, remain valuable for generations. Because every building is a choice. Every line on a drawing is a commitment. And when architecture leads with purpose, sustainable development stops being an ambition and starts becoming a reality. Thank you for tuning in to the future of sustainable development. Join us next time as we uncover fresh research, new innovations and best practices for building smarter, greener and more resilient buildings. Until then, let's continue to build places that help heal the land and empower communities for tomorrow.